Hang me, oh hang me, I'll be dead and gone. Hang me, oh hang me, I'll be dead and gone. I wouldn't mind the hanging, but the laying in the grave so long. Poor boy, I've been all around this world.
Inside Llewyn Davis is a folk song. The Coen Brothers' best film of the decade is nonetheless a divisive one. The arguably quite unlikable main character and the strange structure make it a movie that is difficult for a fan of the Coens' lighter comedies or straighter thrillers to approach. But for those who give it a chance, there is a lot of very intimate emotion and subtext to discover. It provides a critical but still somewhat sympathetic look at the starving artist, a talented, if flawed, individual whose inspired and personal work is constantly overlooked in favour of commercially manufactured products that are easy to mass market.
I don't see a lot of money here.
And who is constantly faced with the question of whether or not it is worth continuing to pursue their dream. The movie sees the Coens reuniting with executive music producer T-Bone Burnett, who had previously sourced the folk tunes from O Brother Where Art Thou for the film's beautiful collection of live recorded folk songs, which lend a deep empathy to the film. But the setting of the 1961 folk scene is more than a simple backdrop for a generalised starving artist tale. Inside Llewyn Davis is actually a deep and introspective take on folk music itself. What's most beautiful about this movie is that it uses its central motif as a metaphor in such an incredible way, and I am certain that this is what the entire concept of the film was based around. I've long loved folk music in both form, subject and tradition, but the Coens turn a very critical eye to it. Folk music, in the traditional sense, is the voice of the oppressed and the working poor. There is humour and levity sometimes, but overall it passes down stories from generation to generation of heartbreak, poverty, depression, struggle, death and loneliness. For many generations, it passes from the working poor to each other through oral tradition, where music and word of mouth is the only form of art and communication affordable to people who as often as not cannot even read or write. Then, in the mid-20th century, recording technology becomes widely available, and now folk music is open to everyone, even the upper-class white yuppies who Llewyn is friends with, and it touches the empathetic corners of their souls in a way that they may not even think about day to day. They no longer have many of these struggles, but through the music they can feel like they do for a moment, with the safety of actually being well off, and it gives a sense of meaning to their mundane existence, a longing which they have no need for anymore. And sometimes they do have some of these longings, and the music helps them become absorbed in them, revel in them. Folk music here is a metaphor for depression. Which brings us to Llewyn. Llewyn does have some pretty understandable reasons to be depressed. He is unable to make money doing what he loves, what he is legitimately good at, and the world around him seems more interested in crafted commercial products and flash than what he feels is his genuine talent and the music he connects with and cares about.
You probably heard that one before. If it was never new and it never gets old, and it's a folk song.
His father is old and has dementia and shows him no affection. His situation with Jean is pretty messed up, and most importantly, his musical partner and best friend has died. This is the strongest core part of his depression, and the conflict that Llewyn fails to overcome in the film. The meaning and message of this apparent shaggy dog story is not quite as obscure as it may at first seem. Jean spells out the central theme of the film to Llewyn in their chat in the cafe.
You're the one who's not getting anywhere. You don't want to get anywhere. Me and Jim try.
I want to.
We try. You sleep on the couch.
It's a bad thing to throw in my face, man.
You know, you don't want to go anywhere. And that's why all the same shit is going to keep happening to you because you want it to.
Is that why?
Yes, and also because you're an asshole.
The film follows the structure of both an individual folk song and the folk tradition as a whole. The same core beats repeating over and over, the struggle, the lost love, lamenting its woes, and no sudden happy ending, but rather wallowing in despair, and the folk tradition holding on to these emotions, passing them down from generation to generation. It's romantic in its tragedy, and that's exactly the point. Llewyn is in love with his depression, in love with the struggle, in love with his own hopelessness. It's really not that uncommon, and I think is something that most people can relate to some extent, because it gives one's life meaning. Many people have had that time in their life where they obsess over some object of affection, be it a person or a circumstance or a physical possession, and tell themselves that they can never have happiness until they find this one particular thing. It can give them drive, make them feel like they have real meaning in their lives, build up this object of affection in their mind as some ultimate salvation, and themselves as a noble hero on the way to achieving that goal. Likewise, this perspective can give someone a certain self-gratifying justification of anything that stands in the way of their goal as being a villain, an oppressor. They may be right, or they may be wrong, but there is a definite indulgence which is not difficult to find in this state of mind. Often, it's just enough to feel something strongly, the physical palpitation of the heart and the tears in your eyes, the swelling in your stomach, and this is something that Llewyn cannot let go of. Llewyn's ultimate failure in his Odyssey is that he is completely unable to move on from Mike's death. Mike was his best friend, and playing with him, building their career together, was what made Llewyn happy. After he dies, Llewyn stubbornly decides that playing with Mike specifically was the only way that he could be happy in a folk group.
Oh, honey. What are you doing?
What?
What is that? What are you doing?
Well, it's Mike's part.
Don't do that.
It's Mike's part.
I know what it is. Don't do that.
And the only way he can be happy now is to express his sorrow by continuing to play the songs they played, but alone. And he can't do that and keep being successful. Every jerk and selfish music producer who gets in the way of this is his enemy. They are the system that keeps him down, keeps his life in chaos. And they are legitimate obstacles. But throughout the film, Llewyn is presented with possible pathways out of his depression. His ex, he learns, did not go through with her abortion, and he passes by the town where she lives, an opportunity to reach out and reconnect with her, to become a father, and to forge new bonds and find new purpose. But he must forge his career as a solo folk artist, so he ignores it. The cat that Llewyn finds is lost like him, has no owner, without a home, and could be a new bond in his life, but he leaves it behind, alone in the darkness, to carry on with his path. It is also likely a metaphor for Jean's fetus, as we can see an animal later struggling, bleeding on the side of the road. Perhaps that same cat, perhaps not. Or perhaps it is the opportunity at being a father that Llewyn is again squandering. He is given the opportunity to sacrifice what he has built up as this idea of perfect authenticity, to be part of a folk group, but he cannot fathom singing with anyone but Mike. He refuses to even entertain the possibility. He is given the opportunity to join the army, which is his chance to escape his journey not for happiness, but to become a mindless automaton, the way that he feels the Marine in the first segment of the film is, to escape his emotion. But he gets one more chance to stick to his path, and he takes it. This chance may actually be a way for him to escape his situation, but Llewyn refuses to let go of his struggle and resentment, and gets drunk and abusive the night before, which leads to him ending up exactly where he started. Even Bob Dylan's appearance at the end seems to be mocking Llewyn's lost potential, with Dylan performing a tune with very similar themes to Llewyn's farewell, as Llewyn lies in the dirt, beaten and broken back down again. But the difference is that Dylan's tune, while based heavily on the same folk songs Llewyn sings, is an evolution and original work. Dylan takes from the past but innovates, whereas Llewyn cannot move on. He refuses to evolve and change to create success for himself. The ending is still a bit of a mystery, to be honest, as the situation surrounding it seems different, and it doesn't really make any sense as any sort of literal time loop, but the event plays out more or less identically, which suggests to me that it's more of a metaphorical than literal repetition. Like a folk song, the first refrain reoccurs in the last refrain, an acceptance of the situation. There's the thought there that it's not going to change, that the struggle is eternal, and it may be hard to escape. Anyone who struggled with depression knows that. But we understand now that for Llewyn, it's more than that. He doesn't want it to. He's in love with his struggle, with his hatred, with his feeling of being an outsider, his own self-pity, and his inability to complete his cathartic journey over the death of his friend. It gives his life a sense of purpose, this constant misery, and he has built up that there is only one goal which will make him happy, closing himself off to all other possibilities. Folk music and self-indulgent depression, hand in hand, is the true tragedy of Inside Llewyn Davis.
That's what I got.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. I'm really enjoying making these essays, looking deeper into the films that I love, so there'll be plenty more to come, along with my own films and updates on my new feature film project. It's an exciting time, and I'd love if you could join me on this journey. Thank you.